Keith D, what's going on, dude? Welcome on.
I appreciate you having me, man. How you
Absolutely.
feeling?
Yeah, feeling good, bro. Feeling good. The market's in a bit of a weird spot. Anyone watching this knows the market's been a little bit shaky. We're recording this in September, so September's been a bit of a weird month. But nonetheless, we're keeping the ball rolling, and I really was excited to bring you on because if people don't know, I mean, this guy's channel has been absolutely exploding recently. Just a couple months on the scene, nearly at 100,000 subscribers, having multiple videos with hundreds of thousands of views. One video almost had 1 million views. I mean,
Is that a,
absolutely exploding. Is it at 1 million now?
yeah, it is.
Oh, okay, okay, my bad, my
Yeah, I had to.
bad.
We had to.
Yeah, absolutely insane stuff. And so I was like, I have to get this guy on. We got to chat with him, talk about crypto, talk about content creation because you're absolutely crushing it. And so, look, just to get the ball rolling, man. Look, for the people who may not know you, just give us a quick 2 to 3 minute introduction to who is Keith D and kind of what's life looking like on your side, man.
Perfect. The existential question: Who is Keith D? um, no, I mean, I'm just a guy who really cares about financial literacy and has happened to get a little bit of traction on YouTube, trying to spread some more awareness about financial concepts, economics, and continuing to learn as I do so. And I just happen to also have been really deep into crypto over the past 5 years. So in that, I have a lot more to say in that regard, and it seems like people want to hear about that. So it's kind of what I've been doing, man. But that's pretty much me.
Yeah. So, well, let's just kick it all the way back. So, on this show, what we like to do is we like to kind of bring viewers through the whole journey, right? And I'm also super interested in it to hear how you got to this point, especially to have such a kind of a focus on financial literacy. So, let's just go all the way back. What were the early days like for you, right? Where are you from? What was early life kind of looking like? What was the foundation that's kind of gotten you to where you are now?
For sure, man. So I grew up in rural, not rural, I mean, step back, in southern United States, in a place called Nashville. So not rural, let me set it clear, but just in the South. And with that, there was a lot of opportunities to learn about humanity in that, in being obviously a person of color and also just being in a place where education is something that is lacking. Um, in the US in general, right? Like, I think we have a big problem in the education system, but in the South specifically as well, there's been a huge lack of resources and opportunities for people, for all people. And so, anyways, I think that played a big role in kind of like just how I looked at the world and realizing that um, I wanted to, not even I wanted to, I felt the need to kind of like do things differently. And by the way, I like to tell people that I went to an incredible school. I've grown up extremely privileged, like, just to be clear. And in that, I just was very aware of that, and so I always was very grateful to my parents for doing what they did to put me in the positions that they did. But I still realized that with that, I felt a responsibility to like try to find ways to create and do more for others as well,
Mm,
because there's just a lot that you get in those situations that you don't necessarily like deserve or that you didn't earn at the very minimum. And so um I noticed that there are people way brighter than me that don't have the same types of opportunities. So how can we continue to develop and create opportunities for people? So that was a big part of my like earlier days, I guess, like middle school. I started to realize that because, okay, so let me tell this story. I remember one of my very best friends and we were like just super aware of the fact that we were like in this way different kind of society. Like, where we grew up, where we really came from, wasn't like what we were experiencing in this
mm,
school that we went to. We were like, okay, there's people pulling up, getting picked up in like Bentleys and like Ferraris some days, and we're like, this is kind of crazy. Like, we're in middle school, and there's these parents of these people are clearly on like a whole nother level with their lives. And anyways, through that into high school as well, there was one day, I don't know if you're into cars or not, but one day we were in high school, and he and I were probably the only ones who really knew, but there was a 918 Spider that was just sitting in the parking lot. And that's $1 million Porsche, one of the hypercars that they developed, I guess, like over a decade ago now. And eventually you're just like, all right, like, what is going on? um, so in high school, I'm like, just once like I said, I was like very interested in trying to find ways to do things. So I would like talk to people's parents. I'm like, this is a unique opportunity, like to have this proximity to this success. So I would talk to kids' parents. I'd ask them about different things in business, legal. There would be lawyers and stuff. I'd ask them about like legal stuff around business, and I would be running these little e-commerce stores and things of that nature. And I was doing some affiliate marketing and just trying to find ways to generate income and create financial freedom. And so those were a lot of the things that happened in my earlier days. Now, another thing that happened as I was coming into high school, I took like my parents allowed me to take this like little stock course.
Mm.
And so this was taught by an economics teacher. His name is Danny Wright. And I just want to shout him out because he's a fantastic human being. And anyways, he taught me stocks. We did the Investopedia simulators, like whoever had the most at the end of the summer would like win the competition. I don't really remember if I won the competition or not, but at the end of the day, that was my introduction to financial markets. And honestly, the next 4 years, it was absent, but then it ended up coming back a little bit later.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And that's interesting, right? Because so many people in a position like kind of that you were in wouldn't notice, right? I think that it's so normal for them to maybe have grown up in an environment in which there are people who have found so much financial success that they don't recognize that it's not normal. You know what I mean? And I think that says a lot about your character that you are able to recognize, like, hey, this is not normal. One, two, how can we kind of take this and take the things that we see and what we've learned and propagate that to the other people around us who've maybe not been given the same opportunities as us? And I think that says a lot and it makes a lot of sense, especially because you've found your way to being a content creator. But before I guess we get that far in, right? Tell me a little bit more about, so you got into stocks around the very beginning of high school, maybe not so much as you got through the rest of high school, but then you go to college. So what was college like for you? Where'd you go? What did you go for? Kind of how did things start transpiring post high school that ended up getting you back into this area?
Yeah. So post high school, I got super blessed and had an opportunity to go to the University of Miami. Um, and in that, I had a scholarship, so went there without too many obligations. And in that, that was when I started getting a little bit deeper into this concept of crypto, quite frankly. And then that kind of got me back into market. So technically, it was right before I took off to the University of Miami. A good friend of mine had done an internship at a VC firm. And there was some day where like Vitalik Buterin died was like the headline. And he told me about this, and I was like, okay, what is Ethereum though? Because um, at that point, like we had heard about Bitcoin, we had like used it here and there for whatever, but like Ethereum to me was like a whole new topological class of things. Like, what is that exactly? That means there's something happening that's not just this little asset that we can use to buy things on the internet. Um, and so that was when I went super deep down the rabbit hole, understood that this was kind of also an investable thing, not just a
Mm.
usable thing, and that there was also potentially utility to it all. So yeah, so as I got into college, this was in 2017. So, I was investing, and then right into the end of this bull run, saw this big run up. And then that's when the whole financial markets thing really clicked for me, honestly. Because I'm like, wait a minute, like I just put like a few $1,000s into this thing, and now it's like worth 10,000 plus dollars or whatever. And took no profits, by the way, to be clear.
As we do.
Yeah. And so going into January, February, start to see things turn around, but have no idea what happens next. I'm just like, this is the future. So whatever's happening, I guess it'll happen. But learned a lot through that. And then my favorite part is, okay, going into 2018, I realized that we were going to go into a bear market. I was like, this is probably the best opportunity for me to like go and stack as much as I can. So I took a semester off of university,
Mhm.
literally just to stay home and stack money and invest in the crypto. I was like, I know this is going to be like a generational opportunity to acquire assets. And I went hard. I mean, I was working, full days, two different jobs, and the silly jobs like working at a restaurant, like valeting cars. But my expenses were zero, so I was putting everything I could into the assets that I believed in the most. And then come 2020, ended up actually working a little bit more professionally in the crypto space. I worked with one of the first ever DeFi protocols that was bringing real world assets on chain. And then um, into the end of 2020, I actually left that company right before they ended up having an incident with the Securities and Exchange Commission because it was a little bit too far ahead of time. And they were the first DeFi protocol that they actually ever went after. And then ironically moved into the security token space. So from DeFi to security tokens, and then a year after that, I actually went into being a fully licensed financial investment broker. So Series 7, 63, all that, and this was all in what 2023 now, so not too long ago. And then anyways, I kind of forgot where we were going with this. So yeah, so this is kind of like my financial background. It was like DeFi, just like learning stuff on my own. And then the security token space started to introduce me to some of the regulations around securities and things of that nature. And then I was like, oh, I like this a lot. Like I need to go fully into this. Got my Series 763 and started working on raising capital for private equity deals and real estate development deals as well. And yeah, that's pretty much the most recent professional experience. I was like, all right, this is great, but it's not as entrepreneurial as I am, right? It's like my whole thing is like entrepreneurship. The security token group was a startup. That's what we were doing, is just building a company. And then I was like, all right, I need to like do something else. And also I needed to retreat. I was in Miami. Costs are going crazy. I'm like, let me like set back up and started trading in the futures market. That was kind of the most recent thing that I started working on, found some success with that here and there. And then I started this YouTube channel in the middle of my futures trading journey, and here we are.
So, wow. I mean, the amount of experience that you've gotten over the last couple of years is crazy. And it definitely shows. Like, I think anyone who watches your videos can tell, like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Because there's like your YouTube bro, kind of like me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just here. We're just kind of chatting, right? But then there's like there's an ability that you have to, on a granular level, break down very specific things that most people overlook. And I think it shows your background, it shows your experience. And I want to kind of tap into a few spots of that background because that's super interesting to me. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was the fact that you were so willing to take a step away from college just for a little while, right? But take a step away from college where you are on scholarship. You have a great opportunity there because you recognize that there's an opportunity that's even bigger and something that is still rather unknown at the time, right? Like I was in crypto before 2020 and people kind of looked at us weird. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about crypto, people kind of looked at, we were like that guy of the group, which kind of sucked. And so I'm curious, what was it about crypto at that time in your life that was such a standout to you that you were like, I am going to go back, get a bunch of work done, make a bunch of money and go in because this has to be the thing. Where'd that conviction come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I think about it, I think it just comes down to the fact that I understood that there's a limited number of these assets, right? And the way that the trend had been up until that point was that, well, the price kind of only moves in one direction, and that's at an exponential pace. So if we're going into a period of time where the prices are going down, then this might be a generational opportunity to get involved as prices continue to go up exponentially over time. So I think it was just like the way that I look at crypto is like you have a limited number of assets or whatever you could say of tokens of a particular asset. Let's just say Bitcoin in this example. You only have 21 million Bitcoin, but there's an infinite amount of fiat currency that's going to continue to be printed the way that things are today. And so with that said, like there's kind of like a race to acquire these assets in my eyes, and this hasn't gone away. I still have this level of urgency of like, we don't have forever to accumulate these assets and participate in what's happening. It's like if you're obviously the sooner you're involved, right, the more of a return you're going to get. And so for some reason that just really clicked to me, and I felt like an existential issue of like, I need to do this now because no one's paying attention. My parents don't get this stuff, nor did they necessarily have all the resources to do anything about it. I saw how smart people were that just weren't caring. They weren't paying attention. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. This is an opportunity that is clearly not being seen. And that also probably played a big role. It's like, I'm in college. I'm a freshman in university. And I'm talking to bankers and people who are in the space and they don't get it. So I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Maybe it's the ego in me that was like I do get it. And so I'm the one clearly here that's going to take advantage of this. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe that's part of it.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I guess kind of moving forward, where did Where did the decision to okay, so you ventured into DeFi, you found some success there, you were in the startup, you found some success there. Where did the decision come from to go back and get these licenses? Was it like I want to be licensed so that I can just do better for my own personal portfolios and my own personal investing? Is it this is something that I just want to make money from? Was it I want to start a YouTube channel one day and I want to know what I'm talking about? Like where did the decision come back to go back? Because personally, I dropped out of college in my sophomore year. And to be fair, I hated college with a burning passion. But after I was out of it, I couldn't imagine going back just because I felt what freedom felt like. I felt like I could do whatever
Mm.
I want and I got addicted to it. So why was that something that was so interesting to you to go back and get licenses and take classes or whatever it may be to kind of sacrifice some of those freedoms that you had just recently kind of experienced?
You know, I think it's a fair question, but also, when it comes to getting these licenses, it's very much so like just get a book, read a book, take a test kind of thing. I had a mentor, by the way, and this is where it all kind of came together for me. He's an incredible human being. His name is David Wilson. He lives in Miami. He helped to build the entire Arts Center. Like he's like on the wall there for having helped to build it. They're big. The Arts Center is the arts center there. And anyways, just an incredible human being. I want to quickly tell the story because I was with someone else and we went to go to this restaurant or whatever. And I didn't plan to meet this guy or anything, but I sat down next to him and everybody just kept coming up to this guy and they were like, this guy here is the guy. Like he's the man. He's a 63-year-old man, and everyone's like, I'm talking about like, people are coming up and they're looking like NBA players or like actors. I'm like, I don't know who these people are, but they're clearly also very successful. And they're like pointing to this guy and saying like, he's the man. You need to keep talking to him. Like he's the one, whatever. And anyway, so like that same weekend, the next day, I went to his office and I just sat down with him and we just talked. And like he never had to tell me to come back to the office again. I would just be up there like every single day, just soaking up as much information as I could. And it turned out that this man also owned a broker dealer. So he was kind of like my entry into that space. Like there are very few broker dealers. There's like less than 4,000 people that have the licenses to be a broker dealer in the security space. And I just happened to kind of meet one of them and he took me in under his wing and taught me the ropes. So I was like, first off, this is just a space where it feels like this kind of unlimited opportunity. And it felt like I had kind of been introduced to this world of like, oh, here's where the money's really at and where it's really moving around. So let me dig deep on this. And getting the licenses was kind of another little thing of just like, let me prove to myself that I'm capable because people say
Sure.
this stuff is hard. Like, let's do it.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest takeaways from getting those licenses that you think was actually valuable? Because I would assume there's probably a lot of like stuff in there that's not that important, but I would assume there's also some good stuff in there. What are some things that you learned while getting those licenses?
So here's something controversial. One of the main things that I learned from getting these licenses is that like what people are being taught is sometimes even like the opposite of what things really are.
Mm,
That was one of my biggest takeaways. And this, it's controversial because so they teach you like stock market like patterns a little bit and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't fully subscribe to a lot of the chart patterns and candlestick patterns rather and stuff like that. So I'm like, I don't know that this is really the right thing to be like officially saying that this is like, if you get this wrong on the test, then you've gotten it wrong and you shouldn't be a licensed securities professional. I'm like, dude, like, I don't know. Like some of this stuff is not fully accurate. So I think that was one of the big things too. But also these are legal exams. So a lot of it is just like legal stuff that you kind of want to know, which I think is helpful, especially being in media and content. Like you kind of want to be careful about like the things
of
that you're
course.
saying and the way that you're moving. So that was probably some of the more helpful things. But other than that, I mean, it forced me to learn how to express ideas in terms of options, which was also really important because um, I think like the options market can be really confusing, and it kind of helped me to like it forced me to feel like, oh, I can actually do this, and so there's a lot of stuff in it, but
Yeah,
those are big things.
100%. And so I guess that kind of pushes us into 2024, 2025. And now we're starting to get close, right? You're trading futures, you're getting in that. And then I guess at some point you make a decision like, I want to make YouTube videos. And I know you had kind of maybe an inclination about this when you were younger. You recognize that you were in a position of some sort of privilege, right? Like you were in an opportune moment, an opportune life that you could use to again propagate some of these opportunities to other people. And Is that something that you carried for a while? Was it like while you were doing DeFi, while were you getting licensed and all this, were you thinking like at some point I'm going to do this YouTube thing and talk to people about it? Or was it more just like a one day you woke up and was like, I'm gonna make a video today and then took off? Like what was that decision like?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So I'll back up a little bit too because I didn't tell the story of how when I was in Miami still, I think this was 2023 as well. I kind of had gotten bit by this bug again of like, oh my goodness, like this is going to change everything and people aren't paying attention.
Mm,
So I went to a conference and I saw it was a crypto conference and I saw a group of young men. They were all wearing white shirts and they had on these red ties. And so I went up to the who looked like the organizer of that group, and it was a man named Dr. Marcus Bright. And so I started talking to Dr. Marcus Bright, and I'm like, "Hey, man, like, what are you guys doing here? Like, this is really cool to see young men in like, in shirts and ties, like at a Bitcoin conference. Like, what's going on?" And he just told me the story. He was like, "Man, we're just trying to like get these kids educated." He
mm,
understood also that feeling of like we're getting left behind if we don't like make sure these kids are participating in this stuff, then they won't know. And so this organization that he was the head of was called 5,000 Role Models. And so we ended up just kind of forming a relationship from there. And I was like, I would love to come and like talk to kids about crypto. That'd be fantastic. Um, and really, he suggested it, and then I was like, oh, that would be fantastic. And so I did that for a few months with him, just going around to different high schools, just talking to kids about blockchain and crypto. And that kind of just made me feel like, okay, yeah, this is kind of some of the stuff that I was put here to do. And I was learning so much from these kids and so on and so forth. So that was kind of like the beginning of me actually going out and trying to properly like teach about crypto and stuff. And then, that only lasted so long because I wasn't getting paid for it, and it was like hard for me to continue to do it. But he and I ended up doing a lot of stuff together. We went to like colleges as well, and we're doing the same thing. So after that, nothing for the next 2 years. And then
mm.
one day I was out in my neighborhood walking. I was earlier this year, I was like walking and reading, and people would like talk to me because they're like, why are you reading and walking at the same time? Like, isn't that dangerous? Or like, what are you
Yes.
doing? Like, and one day I ran into a young lady who was talking to me about how she was going to students. She was going on some retreat to talk to kids about religion and to meet God. Essentially, she was trying to introduce kids to God. And I kind of just had this revelation. I was like, wait a minute, like, what have I been doing for the past 2 years? I haven't been doing my thing of
Mm.
like talking to kids about crypto and whatnot. And then I was like, maybe there's also a way to like combine these things and like talk to kids about money and finances through religion in order to make things clear, to kind of like clear things up, draw some analogies and things of that
Mm.
nature. And so I ended up just kind of like starting to write about that. I was like writing some speeches, doing some presentations, and then I never did anything with that in particular, but this was 3.5 months ago. And then eventually I was like, okay, I need to like practice this. If I'm gonna do this, I should practice. And so I started practicing in the form of creating YouTube videos. And that's kind of what
It's crazy. And now here you are, 100,000 subscribers later.
happened.
That's nuts. Okay, I love this. So it seems like there definitely was kind of a consistent pattern where you've always felt like you needed to just give things back to people. And I like that a lot because I'm a very, very harsh critic of the schooling system in the sense that I just personally don't believe that the schooling system fully prepares you for what real life is like. I think I've learned more and grown more since I've been out of school, since the 18 or 17 years that I spent in school. And I guess with that in mind, before we kind of cycle off into the content creation side, because boy, do I have a lot of questions for you about that, I want to kind of get your thoughts more about like, what is it that the schooling system do you first and foremost think that the schooling system is maybe missing some of these things? Because you're telling me a lot, like, you were talking to kids, you were talking to young men, you were talking to young women, so it seems like there definitely was a perspective that you took, like these kids are missing things. And so I wonder, what are those things that you think maybe the schooling system is missing, and what are the things that are lacking within the day-to-day educational kind of system that has been created that's stopping people from reaching these levels of success?
Yeah. I wish I studied it more. There was a time where I did a podcast with an educator up in Brooklyn, New York, and that was a really good time because I was learning more about the things that he was doing, and he would have these after school programs and whatnot to kind of like just teach kids about life and things of that nature. And we did a podcast talking about finances to kind of go down that rabbit hole as well. I think that's one of the major things that you don't learn in any version of school. at least in the United States, is around personal finance. It's very rare to have an opportunity to learn about like how investing can change your life, right? And what it means for you as an individual to invest and why it's important, why it's imperative. You don't learn about the monetary system. You don't learn what fiat currency is, but that's the fundamental fabric of our everyday life. I mean, we use money, we work for money, and then we use money to pay for rent and food, and we don't know anything about that thing. We don't know anything about money. um, so I think that's the big thing. And a lot of people say that it's intentional. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, you got to think about it. Like, how can you ignore something that's so fundamental to everyday life? You know.
Doesn't make sense.
Um, yep. So anyways, I think that's the big thing. Money, personal finance. What are we doing here? Why are we working away to pay someone else? And how do we potentially create more freedom for ourselves in our lives? And so that was something I was always obsessed with, and that I was never being educated on outside of YouTube University.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense. And I am an advocate that I think it's intentional. It's just kind of how I look at it. I couldn't see how it's not. Because like you said, it is the core foundation of everything. Humans in general have a right to certain things. And to accomplish some of those rights that we have, you have to have some form of money. So at its core, money is a portion of our existence, but it's completely ignored. It doesn't make sense. And so it does make a lot of sense as to what you said. And I think there's very few people who've made that recognition and then also acted on that recognition, right? Like going out and talking to kids and speaking to kids. And I do want to commend you and give you a lot of props for that, because that is something that is like, that's fantastic, right? And I guess my question is, to go forward, now that you have started making content and you have started doing it, how have you felt like you started to achieve that goal, like what you set out to do? And have you feel like you started to make an impact and a change and impact on people's lives now that you are speaking to hundreds of thousands of people at a time about finances and the monetary system and all that? Do you feel some fulfillment, like you're accomplishing that goal?
I think when that Bond video started to take off, the one that hit 1 million views last week, I think that was a moment of like, okay, I think we're accomplishing the goal. Because that one is just like a pure educational, no narrative. And the thing about it too is like that video doesn't get 1 million views because I'm good at it or because I'm great or I knew a whole bunch. It got 1 million views because people wanted to know about it. And that was another thing that happened with this whole channel was like, when I hit my first 10,000 subscribers, I almost kind of like I kind of broke down a little bit because I realized that the only reason my channel was doing so well was because the information that I was speaking about that was native and natural to me was something that people weren't getting.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just had this moment of like, holy crap, like I'm just like expressing what to me is rudimentary, like fundamental things. And people are, they need this. Like they're not getting this information. And there's a reason why, so yeah, I think that was also another moment where I really, really felt it. I was like, dang, this feels weird because um, it's not I can't ever say it's in my head anymore that people aren't learning this stuff. Like, no, it's in my face. This is real. People are being held from this information. And I get to be potentially a vessel through which people can get it. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think that's kind of something that is being seen, especially a lot more these days, especially when you look at the YouTube space, you look at TikTok, you look at Instagram, whatever. It's so packed with a bunch of nonsense, right? Just like the things that people will talk about, the YouTube videos you'll see, kind of the harsh clickbait that you'll see out there, and just like the spewing of nonsense is the way that I like to describe it. And you'll recognize that people kind of get so consumed with seeing things that just don't make sense and videos that don't make sense. And someone just saying, oh, Bitcoin's going to go to $800,000, giving no explanation as to why, saying you need to invest in the stock market, not talking about why, right? And I think it's a breath of fresh air. And many people would agree with me whenever we see a channel like yours come around that doesn't have all the fancy lights, the fancy lights, right? All the fancy lights, all the super high quality camera, none of that. You literally at one of your videos, I can't remember which one I was. Dude, your lighting was so bad, I couldn't even see you. I was like, I don't even see Keith. But the video was so absolutely fantastic. I've sat in my living room and watched the video. And I always, people behind the scenes always make fun of Keith because he has one video where bro looks like he's on a ramp. Like you're looking at Keith and bro is like this, and he's just talking to the camera. But the video did absolutely fantastic, and it's because again, you are a breath of fresh air to this space, and you provide an insight, analysis, and perspective that many people don't have. And I love the bridge back to what you said, even from your earlier days, recognizing that you were in a bit of a privileged position, but allowing yourself to recognize it and then propagate it back out to people. And I think that's great. And so I want to start to kind of talk about the content creation side because, as I mentioned before, I've not seen a channel grow like yours has. I've been doing this a long time. I've not seen it like yours has. What are some of the, outside of the fact that this is just information that people need to see, what are some of the things that you've done, right, over the last 3 or 4 months that you believe have had a direct impact to help your channel grow and to get your word out to more people?
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I can take credit for, which is that when I started the channel, I made it a goal to post every single day. So that was the first 30 days of the channel essentially was me, it's crazy because I literally just had no subscribers, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna commit to like doing this for a year where I like get out a video every day or whatever. And there was a point to where, and I had some time on my hands to be clear. Like I'm trading and that's kind of like the main thing that I'm doing. So I have time. And so there would be days where I would sit down and I would do like 5 videos in a day. Like I would just kind of like sit down, come up with some topics of what I wanted to speak about, just go off the riff and just say what was on my mind. And through that, you start to also get a lot more creative as well. Like you force yourself to be creative and you come up with ideas, and some of them are good, some of them are bad. And through that iteration as well, I'm like, the one where you're saying you can't even see me, like, all right, like I got to fix that at least, to where you can see me, and like the audio, I got little mics and like kept just playing around with stuff and just iterating. And I think that was probably the most important thing that I got from that, was that like each and every video kind of just got like a little bit better. And because I was doing so many at a time, it was like there was just a stream of content that was coming out. So I think that was a big thing, because eventually you get to the point to where you just have stuff scheduled out ahead of time. And so you're now able to sit back and really be creative and not having to force that
Mm.
creativity. And now that's where I'm trying to get back to, as we've talked about before. But I think that was a big thing, man, is just committing to really posting on a consistent schedule and being relentless about that.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess to follow up with that, as you were posting a ton, what were some of those earlier mistakes that you think you made, right? Like maybe your first 10 or 15 videos. And this is so fun, just quick context. It's so fun because so many people I speak to here on this channel started their channel 3 or 4 years ago, right? So you can see them, they're like, shoot, that feels like forever ago, whereas with you, that was this summer, really,
Yeah.
right? And so with that recency and being able to still access those thoughts and memories, what were some of those earlier mistakes where you realized like, oh, gotta fix that, gotta change that, gotta work on that? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the major thing was the lighting. Like,
Yeah.
I just had no idea how to do my lighting, and so I was like positioning stuff all around my room and whatnot, and trying to figure out how to get the lighting right in the background to a way that it would like mesh with people. And even now, it's like pretty, second class, but it's just like, it worked for now, so I'm just gonna keep it going. But lighting, audio, fixing the audio levels, and then like at first I wasn't even like doing any sort of editing really. And then I was like, all right, like let me start like trying to put edits into the videos and stuff, and like showing graphically what I'm speaking about. um so I think those are some of the main things, just like video, lighting, audio, and just trying to like make sure that people can actually, like, the goal as a YouTuber, right? Or at least for me, right, as someone who actually is trying to like teach people, it's like
Mm,
I need to play the game so that my messages actually get heard. So that was another major part, is like, okay, packaging is what people call it in the
hmm.
YouTube world, of your thumbnail and your title. And so I had to start to learn some of that stuff. And like my thumbnails, got lucky there because I just kind of would sit there and do a pose.
Yeah.
And that happened to work. But the titles, I think, is what kind of like got people to click. There was one video where I was like, well, I use vidIQ. vidIQ, okay, is like one of these little apps that you can like use to analyze your channel. And it gave me this thing. It was like 0.01% wealth people, whatever. And I was like, wait a minute, let me play with that. And then I did like what the 0.01% whatever. I don't even know what I said, or what I
Yeah.
learned from growing up around the 0.01%. Because like I had this a video where I sat down and talked about growing up around the richest man in my state and having, being going to that school that he created and being there with his grandchildren and things of that nature. And so all of a sudden, that video got like 100 views. And I was like, okay, like there's something to this, And then I kept kind of playing with that. And eventually it was what the 1% know about the big, beautiful bill that you don't. And like that was the one where everything changed.
Yeah.
So found my little like title, my little hook that would get people to watch. And that video ended up getting like 100,000 views. Mind you, the most I had on any video at that point was like 100 views. So as that one started to take off, I was like, oh, okay, well, the content definitely itself I was actually perplexed by that part of it. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, what did I say? Like,
Yeah.
But I could understand how the title, definitely enticed people to want to watch that video. So, anyway, so those were some of the major things that I learned in the beginning.
100%. And I can only imagine what that felt like, because I remember in my earlier stages, I went from like 1,000, 2,000 views a video. And then I found this little algorithm in 2021 that shot up for like 3 months. I was getting like 50 or 60,000 views every single video. And dude, I would drop like 3 of them a day. So I'm just running like 180,000 views a day every single day. And I remember when I was there, I was looking at my screen and I was just like, I don't really understand why this is happening, but we're good. We're gonna keep going. But no, I could only imagine what that felt like for you. And I would like to kind of shift gears a little bit into more of the financial side of things as well, whenever it comes to YouTube, because I bet that must have been a pretty cool moment when you went from this just being an idea and something that you could do to practice for your speeches and kind of educate the masses. But now AdSense is paying out, right? You're making a little bit of revenue from your views and stuff. What was that like? Was it kind of this light bulb moment like, oh, this is a business, like this can be a business? Or did you already figure that was going to happen anyway?
I definitely didn't expect it to happen that fast.
Yeah.
I was prepared to talk into the void for at least a year. So that part of it was definitely different. And so, my background is in marketing and stuff. So like I was very quickly like thinking to myself, okay, AdSense will pay me, but I also like I watched Think Media, Sean Cannell and stuff like that. And so I already had this idea in my head of like the YouTube AdSense revenue is like not gonna really take me to where I want to go. But obviously it's a nice thing to have and to like have that to be supporting your channel. You can use that money to like pay for editors or whatever you need to do. So anyways, I was like, I need to very quickly like start to properly monetize this. Which, I didn't have to do that, but I opened up a Patreon and that kind of like helped to provide a little bit more steady income to me. The thing that I was concerned about was like, I only make money if YouTube decides that they want to serve my video to someone else. And it's like, well, I need to like in any marketing space, you're like, you want to own your list, for instance, right? Like you want to have your own email list so that you can contact them whenever and don't have to worry about an algorithm or running ads, for instance, to actually get those eyeballs again. So I was like, I need to have that kind of a system in place where I'm collecting emails, and which was wild, by the way. So the first video where I ever did a call to action where I was trying to collect emails was on the Big Beautiful Bill video, which happened to be the first video that took off. So I was like, well, all right.
That works.
That worked out pretty well. So anyways, yeah, so that was the goal, was to immediately get to the point where I owned my audience to an extent so that I could reach them whenever I could without having to worry on an algorithm. So yeah, it was cool though to get to the point to where there is actual money coming in, but I immediately was like, we're providing way more value than what I'm getting back. So let's quickly find ways to capture that value and re-pour it back into the content and into the mission.
100%. And whenever you speak about kind of like reinvesting it and pouring it back into the content and the mission, what is the long-term goal, right? Like, would you like to eventually okay, and let me give a little context before I ask this question. I can tell that obviously you have very deep, like, determination to have mass impact, right? Like I know you don't want to just impact this person on one day. Like you want to have generational impacts. I can feel it. I've spoken to you multiple times in private. I can tell. And obviously YouTube is a great platform to do that, but obviously it can get much bigger than YouTube as well. And so I question, is it like, are you trying to take this big, right? Are you trying to have not only just a YouTube channel that's big, but more of like a media empire centered around educating the masses on the things that they're missing? Is that the direction that we're going with this? Or is it, I'm gonna make YouTube videos for a few years and then call it a day?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to say because I'm not sure where this goes from here. Like my whole goal, for instance, at the beginning of this journey was to like use YouTube as a way to get speaking gigs. Like I was like, oh, if I have a good YouTube following, then I can definitely, get speaking opportunities. Now I'm like, do I really need to do that? Like, I don't know if I really need to even go
Right.
out and speak in the real world. And then on top of that, it's like, yes, there's this burning desire to make sure that this information gets out. So I have no idea what it actually looks like. Like, I'll provide a little context with like 2 years ago, I definitively said to myself, my goal is to, by the end of my life, have built 1,000 learning centers around the world.
Hmm.
And I use that word because at first it was libraries. And then I was like, well, maybe it's like schools. But then I'm like, we don't believe in school. So why are we building schools? So, just trying to see how that, I guess, kind of will accumulate. Because, yeah, the goal is global impact, helping people to get access to opportunities that they otherwise might not have had access to. And whether that's through YouTube and continuing to spread just information and knowledge through that, whether it's through building companies that allow people to get a little bit more of a personal touch on top of like the things that they're doing. And like, everybody learns in different ways, right? So maybe it turns into me finding the different ways in which people learn and bringing that to them to teach them about financial literacy. So, still very, very early, but yes, I do plan on continuing this mission in whatever form is going to be the most effective for getting that impact to happen as fast as possible so that by the time I'm gone, there's a blueprint for how to continue to do this kind of
Yeah.
thing.
One of the coolest things about that is also the fact that you are deep in crypto, right? Because so many people who want to have a similar impact to you are very much so focused more on the personal finance side or the stock market side or ETFs or bonds or whatever it may be. And I find it interesting and compelling that you have that crypto touch because it's something that not a lot of people have, right? It's not something that most people haven't been touched by crypto before to where they can really see the actual vision and you can. And I'm actually curious. This is something that I wanted to ask you as well. Whenever you take your own personal finances into account, right? As someone who speaks about personal finance, you obviously you practice what you preach, I would assume. And I guess what are some of the core personal finance things that you apply to your own life that you think maybe some people are missing or that have just made a big impact on you in general?
Yes. I would say the major thing, and this I do this to a fault to an extent, is like I'm like we were just talking about this and how you kind of move around. It's like I don't I don't like having like money, like cash. Like when I get cash, I place it somewhere. Like it to a fault. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm just like like I could probably have a little bit more runway. But anyway, um I think that's one of the major things that have like, it just started when I went in 2019 and started to kind of like stack and invest crypto. I was like, I don't need money at that point. I was like, I don't need money for anything. So like all of my money is going into the markets. And like if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had the impact that I got throughout that 2020, 2021 bull run either. I went from, literally just like a couple of thousands of dollars from working into to being at a point where I could have had a mini retirement if I would have managed it properly. So anyways, so I think that's one of the major things, like flipping around, like people say you're supposed to uh save 20% and like spend 80%. And I'm like, I would flip that around if I could. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna spend 20% and keep 80% because at the end of the day, like when we are younger, especially, you have an incredible opportunity to compound over time. So when you start making those decisions and having those habits in place, even if it's not 80 to whatever it is that you can contribute, man, if it's just like 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 25 bucks a month, that compounds over time. And so that's kind of, I kind of forgot the question, but for me, like that's
Sure.
one of the big things, just getting as much into my long-term investments as early in my life as I can.
Yeah, no, and that answers the question perfectly, right? Because I was just kind of curious, what are some of your core principles in your own personal finance? And it's really just focusing on utilizing the biggest asset we have, which everyone knows obviously is our time, right? And so that's fantastic. So so we're getting towards the end here, and I want to start throwing some hard questions at you just because I like making you a little uncomfortable. And the first question that I'm going to ask you is, okay, you're someone who's obviously very well versed in crypto. You've gained a perspective on crypto that most people have not been able to gain before, especially from more of like a VC side of things or a DeFi side of things or whatever it may be. So as someone in that position, I want to know what's the absolute best thing about crypto. When you think about crypto, like this is the best part of crypto. And then what's the worst part of crypto? Like, what's that one thing about crypto that you're just like, I hate that with a passion? What's your pro? What's your biggest pro and your biggest con of crypto?
Yeah, it's almost the same thing. Because of the design of these networks and the limited nature of them, it provides probably the biggest opportunity in human history. And because of that, it also provides potentially the biggest demise for most people, in human history, for them to not participate in what's occurring here.
Mm,
I would say the real con is, I put my tinfoil hat on and I say, well, the major thing about crypto is that we're moving into a world now where you have an immutable ledger of all digital transactions potentially, right? Like, if this becomes the standard for financial transactions, and every single thing that's being done that's a financial transaction is being tracked and logged for the rest of time. So that's one thing that I kind of like to talk about. I think it's definitely interesting to think about. I don't think it's an issue in terms of like I'm doing something nefarious, but it definitely raises the questions of what someone else could do with that information.
mm,
Uh, so let's do.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's kind of shift that question and ask the same thing about being a content creator. What's the best thing about
Oh,
being a content creator and the worst part of being a content creator?
that's fun. The best thing about being a content creator, I think for me, it's just the fact that I can at least go to sleep knowing that I am. I can see the numbers that say that I'm working toward my mission. I think that's a good thing. It's nice, and there's a lot of freedom in this as well. It's like, being able to make videos and like earn a living from that is kind of crazy for sure. I've always wanted to find some level of financial freedom, and I think like this channel is doing that for me. Um, and not just financial freedom, but like location freedom, time freedom, like post a video whenever, you know what I mean, and do that from anywhere. So that's a big thing. I would say the big con of it all, man, is that people you also have to see a lot of people in the sense of the worst of people, and I love people, so having to see that all the time is something that is very frustrating.
Yeah. How do you handle it? Especially as a newer creator, you're still fresh. You're so as years go by, your thin gets real thick, or your skin gets real thick. Like eventually, you're just like you'll see the hate comments. I get called Kermit the Frog at least 35 times a day. Um, shout out to you guys. But how do you handle it as a new creator? How do you handle the ugly side, the negative things that come with it?
At first it really got to me, and I got lucky because I had a guy reach out to me. His name is Kevin, and he just happened to say like, oh dude, like, let's chat, I see you're about to blow up. And this was at like probably 20,000 subscribers, and so he's got like a 250,000 channel. And I was like, I kept talking to him about this stuff because I realized too I didn't have anyone to talk about this stuff with. And he was just there for me, man. He's a super super cool guy. And he was like, dude, like, you gotta stop. Like, first off, like, close the app, stop looking. Like, these people are coming at you, and they quite frankly, like, are you're doing things that they would never do. And then also, like, what are you doing it for, right? And when I remembered, like, oh wait, I'm doing this to teach people about finance. So like, anything that happens outside of that, anything that anyone has to say,
Mm,
outside of that, it doesn't really matter. Like, are you accomplishing your goal of teaching people about finance? Then that's it. So that's the thing that is actually today helps me to step back and say like, oh, okay, actually this stuff really doesn't matter, because people are going to continue to do that no matter what you do.
yeah.
So yeah.
100%. So let's talk about going forward as we kind of wrap this up here. Let's talk about what does the future look like for Keith? And I know you're still trying to figure it out, right? You're still kind of
Mhm.
wading through it all. There's so much pressure that can come from having a channel that grows like yours, so many moving parts. So, maybe fear of making the wrong decisions and things like that. And so I'm curious, let's talk about 6 months to 12 months. What do you hope the future looks like for you? And kind of what can people expect from you going forward, from September on?
Yeah. I think the major thing is just continuing to really hone in on how I can help people the most. Um, I've created a couple of different offerings and products and services, and I'm seeing some incredible impact that like I'm already starting to have on people's lives from that more intimate kind of, touch points. which is fantastic. But I want to continue to figure out how to build systems around this so that we can scale it. And so that comes with honestly surrounding myself with people that are really understanding the vision and that also have experience in making the stuff happen the right way. And so that's the big thing for me right now is I have no idea what the actual end result looks like. It's just for me a matter of surrounding myself with the right people, continuing to learn as fast as I can, and growing with my community. And I'm just like super grateful for all the people that have already been involved in this, and that are taking the next steps to kind of like get that proximity. Because with that, you know, we can together also craft opportunities to like change people's lives all over the world. So just figuring that out, just figuring it
Yeah.
out, man.
100%. Well, listen, it has been an absolutely jam-packed 50 minutes of value going over, I mean, from the earliest days of recognizing the position you were in and how you can make an impact on people, going to college, recognizing the opportunity at hand, capitalizing on it, getting licenses, teaching people about it, having one of the fastest growing YouTube channels in our space of all time. I mean, there's so much there, and I don't want to overwhelm people. So why don't we do this, Keith? Why don't we wrap it up here? And in a couple weeks, we're going to do a part 2 where we dive even deeper. We're going to talk more about crypto, more about content creation, and all that good stuff. I'm sure at that point you'll be at 800,000 subscribers
Okay,
by
that's intense.
now.
Relax.
So- but if that's cool with you, I think everyone who just watched this would love it. I would love it. I think it would be great. I've learned a lot from you here today, and I can really look forward to learning more. You and I have been able to speak a lot more recently behind the scenes, and I feel like I've learned a lot from you, and hopefully I've been able to kind of give you back some of the things that I've learned, and I
Oh, for
really
sure.
look forward to keeping the ball rolling.
Yes, sir, man. I'm all down for part 2. Let's make it happen.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, everybody, if you do want to check out any of Keith's links, we will leave them down in the description below. If it's not in the description, it is not Keith. So do not go look him up. Just click the links in the description. Check those out. But if you guys did enjoy today's podcast, all that we ask is that you do like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is a new podcast, but we do have the intention of bringing you creators just like Keith who are actually shaping the world of Web3, personal finance, and much more. And if you have been enjoying it again, we ask you to subscribe. Check out his links down below, and we'll see you all on the next one. See you later, everybody.